What's going on, guys? Time for another weekly shop update, and believe it or not, this week I've actually got a finished knife to show you guys, which is the first time I've been able to say that since I honestly can't even remember. I know I've started a lot of knives, I've almost finished a lot of knives, but to get one to the actual final polishing and sharpening stage, I honestly can't remember when the last time that was. Not that I haven't been busy out here, not that I haven't been finishing different projects or products. I guess if you want to count the shop knives, in a sense, I've finished several of those here lately. But as far as a heat treated knife, that I've made from scratch and, ground out and sharpened, made a sheath for, or what have you, it's been a pretty long while, like I said, to the point that I can't even remember when the last time was. And a lot of that, it's not that I'm not trying to make knives or I'm not starting knives. A lot of it just is that I get towards the end and I, just lose interest, or I mess one up, or, get set aside for another project. And that is one thing I need to really start trying to work on, is follow through and seeing actual projects through to completion. Something I've gotten better on in some regards, still struggling in others, but hopefully that'll be fewer and farther between, as far as unfinished projects as we go forward here. So, like I say, it's been a while, so I'm very happy and elated to get this one actually finished and get a nice edge on it and have something that I can call done. Now that said, this knife was not without its challenges. This is actually the third attempt and the third heat-treated blank that I made for this design. And it wasn't even the first knife I tried to start making this week. I actually started off with a couple of trapper blades and springs. Actually, I've got the handles here. I kind of dialed in and adjusted my cam for the slip joint trapper handles. And this one's got a little bit of super glue rubbed in, where I kind of put some lighter colored dust in there to kind of make that Riley pop. And I'm still kind of debating if I want to put my name on the handle or maybe just on the blade and do a blank inlay like a lot of guys are doing. But anyway, I started making another slip joint trapper. Got a blade and spring heat treated, surface ground. Got it set up in my rise and fall indicator, zeroed out, open, half stop, closed. It was all perfect. Everything was going great. Took it over to the grinder to grind the bevels, and I slipped and gouged the tang so much that I couldn't fix it. And at that point, I kind of lost interest in that, to be honest. I took it over to the vise, hit it with a hammer, broke it off, and pretty much destroyed that blade. Now, the reason I broke it was actually not just out of anger. I wanted to check the grain, being that I'm using a new heat treat oven. Although it's the same controller, the same thermocouple, everything should theoretically still be the same. I did want to do a little bit of a sanity check, so I snapped the blade off since it was ruined anyway and checked the grain, and it looked great. It was glass smooth, very small and refined, looked perfect. It ground very hard. I mean, everything seemed like it should. So new heat treat oven works beautifully. I'm very happy with that. But needless to say, I struggled a little bit on, trying to make one of my first knives since I can remember. And so I actually ended up heat treating another blade and spring. And I'm trying to remember what happened even with that one, if I messed it up or just lost interest. But whatever the case ended up being, I decided to completely change gears, went to plan B, and started on this design, which is something I've been working on for a little while. I drew it up, I put it in CAD, you know, drew it out in Fusion, got the handle cam dialed in. So I figured I'd just scrap the slip joint ideas for a while. Milled up some handles and some inlays. They actually fit together perfectly from the start, so I was very happy with that. Profiles look good. Scribed out the blade pattern, heat treated 2 of those, and this is actually a new steel, by the way, that I've been wanting to try, called 26C3, I think. It's Spicy White by Alpha Knife Supply, or carried by them. Similar, I guess, to Hitachi White, which I want to say is a Japanese steel that's very hard to come by and pretty expensive as well. The Spicy White that Alpha Knife Supply sells is actually pretty reasonable, and it's gotten some pretty good write-ups on it, some good reviews. A lot of guys that I've read about using it seem to like it. Heat treats very similarly numbers-wise to 1095, though it hardens a little bit more out of the quench. And Laren Thomas actually has a pretty good write-up on it as well. He wrote a pretty in-depth article on the heat treat and the properties of the steel. I'd encourage anybody to check that out. But I liked what I read about it. It's pretty reasonably priced, so I bought a couple sticks of it from Alpha Knife Supply with my last order. Heat treated 2 of these blade blanks, surface ground them, got everything dialed in, ready to grind the flats, and ended up screwing up that one, the first one. Got mad and just drove it right into the grinding belt and vaporized it. So went on to the second one, and as I ground the scale off the one side, it was kind of funny. I actually turned my magnet off, and I'm not sure what happened. It heat treated flat, it quenched flat, tempered flat. But when I ground that first side off and turned the magnet off, it curled up so bad and so violently that it actually sprung up off the magnetic chuck, probably by a good ½ inch or more. It completely popped off the chuck and turned into a banana. Again, I don't know what happened. But it curled up so bad, I didn't even want to mess with it anymore. You know, I was already mad about screwing up the first one, so I took it over to the vise, snapped it off, and checked the grain on it. Again, partially out of anger, partially out of curiosity, but grain looked great on it. So I took my last piece of 26C3, profiled 2 more blades out of it, heat treated them, surface ground them, and this is number 3 of 4. I was actually able to grind a usable knife out of it. And I actually did get close to messing this one up, but I was able to save it. I got a little bit thinner than I was planning on it, but it actually came out just about perfect. You can see it got very thin behind the edge. You know, that secondary bevel, it's at 30 degrees inclusive. Almost disappears. So it's a very thin grind, very sharp. I took the edge to 240 and then hit it on a buffer just to knock that wire off. And it's just razor sharp. Just a real nice hitting a crease in that paper. But a real nice sharp edge, nice and toothy too. I'm really impressed with how this 26C3 sharpened out. I think this is going to make a really nice user. You can see I did a hand rubbed finish on it, and then actually after I hand rubbed it to about 400 grit, I want to say, I took it over to my Scotch-Brite, fine Scotch-Brite wheel, and just put a nice little satin finish on there. Finished it on the buffer, and then I polished that handle up, which I'm very happy with how it turned out. You can see it's completely hidden fastener. This is brown linen micarta, and actually there's 3 pinholes underneath that inlay that I peened some small brass pins into, and then flush those on the inside so I could put the inlays in all the way. They're glued in and flushed up, and just a completely but very secure hidden fastener style handle, 1/4-inch lanyard hole, and very happy with how that came out. It's very thin, very low profile, 3/16 inch on either side scale thickness. That's brown linen micarta, and I believe that's a black G10. I actually used some scrap I had laying around for the inlays. And you can get a good full 4-finger grip on there. Very comfortable in hand, and just a very nice little utility blade. And here's the Kydex sheath I made for it. And you could see it's a little bit longer than I normally make my sheaths, and that is by design, just due to how slender and straight this handle is. There's really not a lot for that sheath to grab onto, and I actually had made a shorter sheath for it to begin with, and the knife almost fell out of it. So that little bit of extra length on there just gives a little bit more to grab, so it's not going to fall out. And you can wear it around your neck, you know, as a little neck knife, or I spaced these 1/4-inch eyelets out for a small tech lock. You can wear it on a belt, or you can even just stick it in a pocket, push the sheath off with your thumb. You know, it's secure, but still easy to push off, you know, inside a pocket and put to work. And overall, I'm very happy with how this knife came out. You know, there's a lot of times when I design a knife and make it and finish it that I kind of look at it, or, you know, even a week or 2 weeks or a couple months later, I'll look at a design and get kind of tired of it. This one I don't think is going to be like that. You know, this is a kind of a design that I've had in the back of my mind for quite some time, and I was just never really able to get it down on paper just like I wanted to. Until recently, I was kind of trying to draw it out again, and you know, this is what I came up with, and it just finally all came together. You can see I also put my maker's mark on there, A. Riley. It's kind of hard to focus, especially in this lighting, but got my name on there, and overall just very happy with how this one came out. If there was ever a knife that I finished that I wanted to keep, this one's going to be it. I don't think I could make a better knife than this. You know, from the geometry to the thinness behind the edge to, you know, the quality of the grind and the finish. There's nothing on this knife that I think I could do better. And for that very reason, I really want to keep it, but chances are I'm probably going to be putting this up for sale and funding some more materials to make a few more. And maybe I'll do a small little run of these. I'm really liking this blade steel 26C3. I'm definitely going to get some more of that. It's 100 thou thick blade stock, by the way. I think it's surface ground maybe down to 95 thou, so just a little bit thinner. And I didn't measure how thin behind the edge it was, but you can see, you know, just how small that secondary 30-degree bevel is. So it's very thin behind that edge. I mean, this thing is a wicked slicer. See how thin that is there. So like I say, I'm extremely happy with how this one came out. And it feels good to, you know, finish a knife after so long, especially kind of being out of practice like I was. Like I said, I messed up at least 4 knives before I finally got this one. Definitely went through the multiple stages of knife maker despair, which at some point includes debating, well, Well, first you want to, or first I want to destroy something, you know, maybe take a hammer over to my bench grinder or belt grinder and destroy it. Then I think, well, I could probably get some money for this. So then I debate selling all my tools. And then I finally calmed down enough and figure, well, I've got enough blade steel. I can either mess up 100 more, or maybe I'll make one good one out of the 100. So, you know, I finally get to this point and, you know, maybe gain a little bit of my sanity back. But like I say, it was not without its trials, but the end result was definitely more than worth it. So, like I say, I guess I'm probably going to be putting this one up for sale. It's not currently spoken for, so, you know, by the time this video airs, maybe I'll have it posted already, maybe not. If not, keep an eye on my Instagram or my Facebook page. It's probably going to be listed pretty soon, so maybe I'll post this video tonight and post it up tomorrow. I want to take some better pictures of it. I've actually got a little light box that I'm going to try to get this situated in, take some better pictures. And then we'll post it and see what happens. But like I say, very happy with how that one came out. I will probably work on the slip joint trapper a little bit pretty soon. I think I want to make a few more of these little fixed blades though. I've got some other projects in the works, so I am rearranging the shop over there, kind of moving some of my heavy tools around, which you can see behind me. I got a piece of channel there I picked up from my local scrap yard. It's a local fabrication shop. They've got a little scrap yard or drop yard out back that I go pick through occasionally. And I needed a piece of C-channel to make some machine skates for. So I'm going to be making some of those. Got most of the parts and pieces I need for that. And then once I make those, I'll be able to move my heavier tools around a little more easily. I also need to make a little toe jack for lifting the machines up to put the skates underneath with. And I may also think about buying, we used to call them Johnson bars. It's basically a large, like a 5 or 6 foot, sometimes even 7 foot pry bar that kind of kicks out at the bottom, and there's like some big wheels or larger wheels behind the pry point. So you get just a tremendous amount of leverage, and you can even like roll stuff around with it. I need to make or buy one of those. I know the actual ones like I used to use, they're pretty expensive. They're like a few $100s. But I've seen some Chinese versions with smaller wheels that look okay. They're about 60 or 80 bucks. Might get one of those. Probably first I'll make a little toe jack. And then, you know, I still need one of those pry bars, but we'll see. Maybe I'll sell a knife or two first. So I've got that in the works. I'm going to be making a new pedestal mount for my 2x72. I've got the materials for that. And started cutting some parts and pieces for that. You know, just a lot going on like any week, but I'm definitely glad to be back kind of into the knife making aspect of things. I'm definitely going to start kind of working that in a little bit more consistently, again, while working on other things in the shop. So I guess we're pretty much at our 20-minute mark. I'm really trying not to keep these so long every week, but I figured, you know, making a first knife in forever, maybe merited a little bit longer of a video. So we'll keep this one under 20, but I do appreciate anybody that made it this far. Thanks for the weekly views, guys. Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you on the next one, guys.